Now, to discuss all of this, the political and the social turbulence in Nepal, I have with me a very special guest, Dr. Anshuman. He is an author and also a professor in conflict resolution and peace research program at National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bengaluru. Thank you so much, Dr. Anshuman, for speaking on this very important topic, what is happening in Nepal. Thank you for joining. Now, my first question to you is this. We saw the same kind of scenes playing out in other parts of the region, like in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka as well. Youth storming into government buildings, setting vehicles on fire. All of these, the same kind of playbook happening this time also in Nepal. Now, do you see any sort of, an honest question, do you see any sort of connection in all of this? Or is it simply because the youth of the country is very frustrated and now just want to hit the streets and voice their concern because this is the only way they can think?
Yeah, good afternoon, Ms. Hannah. Thanks for the opportunity. This is a very important question to actually ask because in South Asia, three countries, what we have seen in, if not in quite succession, but one after another, we are seeing the youth actually storming the stage and coming and demanding the resignation of a particular kind of ruling regime. But having said that, what we witness, there are certain commonalities. One commonality is that the youth actually taking the center stage and protesting against the ruling regime. That is one important commonality. But if you see Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and compare it with Nepal, there are also certain kind of dissimilarities. And the Nepal kind of youth protesting is quite unique, and I'll tell you why and how. Before that, let me also tell you in Bangladesh what we saw, that the youth was actually protesting completely guided by the ethno-religious assertion of identities. Okay, that was one of the important factors that was wrapped with the kind of governance issues and kind of legitimacy question on the Sheikh Hasina government. But in Sri Lanka, the case was something. The important issue was that of the economic crisis, okay, and the authoritarian rule of the then regime of the Rajapaksa government. But in Nepal, what we are seeing right now is that this is something that we predicted. We also thought that since these two countries have seen the similar kind of protest by the youth, the next possible country, because you do not have such a scope in Pakistan or Afghanistan or in Maldives or in Bhutan. So wherever you have a little scope for democracy or a democratic form of government is there, that there could be some possibility that the youth might actually rise and protest against the thing. But what is so unique here, it is not colored with religious sentiments or ethnic sentiments, okay. But then the first kind of an indication we saw in Nepal, where the youth was actually asserting its position, was when Balendra Saha, if you remember, Balendra Saha was a rapper, a musician, a civil engineer in Kathmandu, who actually won and became the Kathmandu mayor, one of the youngest mayors in the 15th Kathmandu mayor. That was the time there was also a lot of talk whether the youth in Nepal, a country which is completely stricken with poverty and unemployment, will come to that, is actually seeing an assertion of youth, or it's a kind of a rise of the youth to take the center stage. What we are seeing right now in Nepal, there are certain commonalities that the youth is mobilized, and of course they might have drawn certain kind of strength, some kind of moral booster from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, but the issues here are completely different. But at the same time, I'll just, before we move to the next thing, one commonality that cannot be actually kind of overlooked or oversighted is the role of the external actors. What we are seeing, I'm not reading too much into it, but just to provoke our kind of an audience and the thinkers, you see the India and the US relationship is not in best of the kind of terms right now. And we have certain kind of issues in Nepal, and any mishappening there in Nepal has a direct spillover effect on us. okay, on India. So that said, well, the role of US in a kind of delegitimizing Sheikh Hasina government, the role of China and the US in Sri Lanka, right now the things are not very clear. Okay, whether tens of thousands of students and coming, and storming the states there in Nepal, I cannot completely rule out the role of the external actors actually provoking and igniting such a protest.
Right. Well, very rightly said. I mean, definitely we cannot say anything for certain, but we cannot rule out these possibilities as well. Next question that I want to pose to you is the economic situation in Nepal. We are seeing that a major percentage of Nepal's GDP comes from the remittances that the youth of the Nepal, they send from overseas. Given this fact, is it the fact that the youth is now completely frustrated with the growing economic crisis in Nepal? How deep it is, I want to understand from you. Is it something which we saw in Sri Lanka playing out, that it just simply collapsed, or is it on the brink of collapse, or is it far away? How deep is the situation right now?
I'm glad that you are actually posing this question. This is, we most of the time in analysis, we take the triggering kind of, factors to actually get into that overshadows some of the most important kind of, issues and factors that drives the kind of frustration, resentment of the people. If you see, Nepal is actually suffering from three important things. One is unemployment, and the second is like the lack of employment, okay, and then there is also slow growth, and there is something called the underemployment. Okay, the state has been very cunning, if not very completely dismissive of the thing. They're saying, okay, people who are underemployed are seen as, okay, employed kind of people. But even after that, you have the unemployment rising to close to 13% in Nepal in 2024. I do not have the 2025 data with me. So, but in 2024, the unemployment rate actually has gone up to 13%, close to 13%, 12.6 if I am not wrong. And when the unemployment is more than 6%, it is an indication that your economy is not doing good. So when you have more than that, okay, the economy is not certainly doing any good in Nepal. Right. But at the same time, when the economy is not going good, the COVID factor continues to affect. Okay. A lot of the Nepali youth who is to migrate to different foreign countries, especially Japan and some of the Southeastern countries, the Gulf countries, India, the market has obviously slowed down, and that has a kind of a direct impact on the Nepali youth actually taking a lot of economic benefit outside. So, but then at the same time, if you see, the Nepali youth is also not unaware of the corruptive practice that is going on in Nepal for a long time. What you are seeing in Nepal, there is the political instability and the political kind of this music chair of changing the prime ministership. Okay, it has been normalized in the polity and the socio-political lives of Nepal. So one of the slogans, if you see, okay, I was watching very carefully. Nepal is very dear to my heart. That is where I did my research. I was very, the areas that I was covering. So I was very closely watching what actually the slogan is. Okay, shut down corruption, not social media. And that is the popular slogan. And who are these people? You have 10th standard kids actually hitting the road. You have college going, university going people. I'm not legitimizing the way they are protesting, okay, but the protest has a economic undertone, and the economic factor is very, very important. The youth is struggling. Youth is struggling to actually get an employment. And those who are actually thinking that, okay, there is a lot of, this is disguised unemployment or underemployment. So this has a very important kind of effect on what is happening right now, and this has been going on for a long time. Just that they didn't come to hit the street. Okay, just that, okay, this has actually triggered them to come. But the youth is very capable, and they have completely aware of the situation and corruption. Okay, and we do not have much time, but say for example the BRI, okay, the Chinese initiative, it is not taking anywhere. The development projects are not taking up. Okay, so that is why there is a huge labor shortage, because the labors are not called for. So those are the kind of situation. But at the same time, you see the frequent changes of the government, and that has led to people understand that the government, or the political parties rather, are completely into making or breaking the government. They are not taking care of the people anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was coming to that question, Dr. Anshuman, that the alliances, it keeps on shifting in Nepal. I mean, yesterday when I was talking to a Nepali journalist, he told me that there are basic ideological differences, and very much so. I mean, it was a shocker when UML and Congress party actually came together and formed the government. But again, we are seeing that there is an infighting going. I mean, how sustainable is this entire model of coalition government in Nepal?
I have been following the Nepal politics for close to 2 decades. Okay, unfortunately, there is absolutely no ideology. I mean, when I'm saying ideology, in the sense, a constructive political ideology. Okay, the ideology of actually clinging to the power, okay, and making or breaking the government has been absolutely normalized, as I told you. Okay, right now what we are seeing is that nobody is an enemy, nobody is a kind of friend in Nepal politics. It's all about in that moment, who comes closer to you and forms an alliance. We have seen KP Oli forming alliance with NC, KC Oli actually forming alliance with the Maoist, right? The Maoists who actually came to power, and I'll give a lot of credit to them. For it's because of them the democracy was re-established in Nepal, or the constitution was drafted, the monarchy was replaced. But where are they? Okay, Mr. Prachanda and KP Oli, they formed the government. Okay, the Nepali Congress and Mr. Prachanda, they formed the government. Okay, now what we are saying, this is a musical chair of forming government. Okay, so how sustainable it is? Now this kind of protest comes, okay, directly questioning the legitimacy of such a kind of thing. Okay, they are questioning that how long you will go. Okay, you had a genuine demand that the monarchy should go. Monarchy went in 2006. It's been close to 2 decades. Okay, and Nepal has actually gone through a lot. Okay, Nepal has gone through a 10 years of bloody insurgency, where there was an atmosphere of fear, anxiety, apprehension, and all those things. Thousands died, thousands have been displaced. Yeah. After that, Nepal has seen a lot of poverty. Then, in the name of writing the constitution, you took solid, like in 2008 to 2015, you took solid 8-10 years to write the constitution. Now there is a constitution in the place. Okay, there is. If you read the constitution of India, then the constitution of Nepal, okay, it is very inclusive in certain ways. Though the Madhesis have certain kind of reservations, this is, you have a direct election. Then you have proportional representation and all those things. It's a beautiful, inclusive kind of constitution. Despite all that, the political culture has been absolutely corrupt. It has been corrupt to the extent that this generation of the politicians, Madhav Kumar Nepal, okay, I'm taking their names, but it has to go to them. They should understand that this model of politics, this model of making and breaking the government, every regular interval, is going against the interest of Nepalese, right? So this, how sustainable? I would see that such movements, we can see more of such movements actually coming in the future. Now the youth has taken the lead, and you will see that the neutral population will join them, and the youth, without the legitimate support or support of the society, would not have hit the road. That is also my one reading, that there is also indirect or direct support to this youth to come and speak against the incumbent government. That is my read right now. Yeah.
Right. Now, given the pressure that the youth is imposing on the government to resign, do you think that the government can fall and Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli can resign? Because we are seeing reports that he might flee to Dubai, so-called medical reasons. But how do you read this entire situation? Do you think that the government can fall?
I personally, if you ask me, if he has certain morality left, he should resign, because for no reason we have seen 16 precious lives have been lost by police firing. Okay, and such a kind of incident was very common in Nepal when there was a Maoist insurgency, when there was a Madhesi, the plain and the hill kind of protest was going on. Okay, those kind of things, that was an ethnic kind of crisis. The state was somehow vulnerable there. But here I do not see the vulnerability of the state. Though there is a vulnerability of the government can be seen, I do not see the vulnerability of the state. Nepal as a state should stand by its own people. And if the police has opened fire, okay, and that means and 16 people have lost their life and 50 odd people are struggling with their life in the hospitals. Okay, if there's some morality left, I think, okay, on that ground, Madhav Nepal, KP Oli should resign. But at the same time, if he is also leaving Nepal and going, as you reported, okay, if he's going somewhere else, this also shows a reputation of the Bangladesh model. Sheikh Hasina actually coming here. So, but then the situation in Nepal is that not that bad like Bangladesh, that he cannot come back. Nepal is not that radical a society. But I would say that, okay, the legitimacy of this form of government and this form of governance has been questioned a big time. Okay, and,
Right.
and the people in power should understand that. Yeah.
Just last question from my end, Dr. Anshuman, is, getting away from the political situation in Nepal, I want to talk about the social media ban per se. When the Nepali government says that these companies, they need to register themselves in the country, in Nepal, do you think this as an infringement of the freedom of expression of the people of Nepal?
There are a couple of things we need to address here. One is in the new liberal order, there is this important issue we need to actually, and we do not have much of answer to this issue. One is that the state sovereignty and the extra sovereign bodies, okay, the companies like, say Twitter or X or Facebook or Instagram, this kind of thing, they do not, or they transcend, okay, the sovereign boundaries of the states. Okay, and they have been so powerful, okay, and they have been so kind of, they have gone into the society so much that taking them away or taking them out of your society is difficult, if not completely impossible. If it is a completely authoritarian kind of state, it is possible. But then the authoritarian state like China has its own social platforms, though heavily regulated, but it is there. Say, for example, now you have WeChat instead of WhatsApp, and all those things are there. But once you have such a kind of system completely penetrated in your society, and the youth of your society is completely clinging onto it, okay, and then the question comes: can a sovereign state, or does the sovereign state have a right to ban, okay, these kind of companies? The answer is simply yes. Yes, the sovereign state. But is the sovereign state aware of the implications? Okay, that is where most of the states actually fail. What we are seeing in Nepal right now, that the state took its citizenry for granted. While it is important, or it is well within its right for the Nepalese government to ask these companies to register, because the law of the land has to be complied with. The law of the land needs to be abided by these companies, and that is where I am with the Nepalese government for doing that. Okay, repeated kind of email or the communications they have made. Okay, they have done the right thing. But before banning, that is where the state as a communicative agency has failed. It was also the duty of the state to communicate with its citizens before banning. They should have created a narrative that, look, these are the foreign companies, they are in our land, they are not abiding by our rule. Okay, we are going to do this. In 15-20 days time, we are going to ban it. They could have created a public perception in favor of the Nepalese state. Right? And that would have actually minimized, or that would have actually taken care of a lot of frustration, a lot of kind of anger, a lot of kind of people clinging to the social media. And they could have actually told some alternative arrangements they would have done. Okay, and they would have made some partial kind of ban on certain things. That would have actually taken care of this interest of the youth, or the demands, or the grievances of the youth. But the state here, or the government rather, failed in communicating. Why they failed? Because they are indifferent or not willing to factor in, okay, the people's aspirations, the people's habit, the people's interest and their connection with the social media, taking your citizens for granted. Okay, so these are tricky issues, but then a better communication from the government side would have taken a month more time to ban it. But in a month more time, we would have actually created a perception among our own youth. Look, okay, these are against our country, our state. The youth, at least some substantial portion of the youth would have actually understood.